Welcome in. It's an all-new Jock Market Power Hour for this week's Tour Championship. We are down to 30. I'm Rick Gaming, that right there. Joe Idoni. Joe, hey, bud. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Excited to sort of put a bow on this season. We've got the grand finale. It all comes down to this. We've been having what feels like one of the longest seasons in all of sports, and excited to sort of see who ends up coming out on top for the FedEx Cup. And of course, we've got a jock market with sort of an interesting structure this week that we'll touch base on. But fired up for IPO, buddy.
Yeah, we're in the heart of it right now. We've got about 45 minutes to go in this IPO, which means you can get your bids in on golfers right now. They have become stocks and you can bid on them, you can buy them, you can short them. There's live trading throughout these events. And if you are not yet involved in the jock market, the best code you can use, Power. There is a link in the description for you to get access to that. But Joe, you mentioned it. We're down to 30. It's been a long year. We're at the finish line, but don't fret because that Fortinet championship right around the corner, just 2 weeks away.
The longest season in sports and the shortest off season in all of sports. So yeah, we'll be right back for the Fortinet here in a few weeks for the new season, the new structure as everything sort of continues to unfold in the world of professional golf. But this is how many years now are we into this sort of staggered top 30?
Year 5, I believe.
Year 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Mixed reviews, I think, from the general population of fans. I think general mixed reviews from the players. But in jock market, and correct me if I'm wrong this week, Rick, for anyone playing, it is a normal tournament. We are not using the starting strokes with one exception. The player who does end up winning the FedEx Cup will get those 5 additional points for the tournament win. It's likely going to result in the top player, whoever wins the FedEx Cup, is probably going to do very well in starting strokes as well. But just one little wrinkle to sort of keep in mind, as the rest of the players in the field are all starting at 0.
This is a really good example of kind of the way that data gets sent to these sites, because the data that Jock Market gets, and this is not uncommon, the birdies and eagles and all that stuff, that is going to be counted and tabulated as if everyone is starting at even par. But the winner, when a little checkbox comes along that says who won this event, that comes from the PGA Tour, and the tour says, well, the guy who won is the guy who won the FedEx Cup. So yes, this should be treated like a without starting strokes. Everyone is at even par for 72 holes, and the only nugget is whoever wins the FedEx Cup gets 5 bonus points. That's it. Everything else should reflect then, Joe, basically the betting market for without starting strokes.
Yes, absolutely correct on that. The one thing I will put in there is, though, you do have to factor in the guys at the top, right? Because I think Jock Market hit a home run with the way that they sort of dialed in their scoring. It's basically easy to understand. If a guy finishes 19 under par and wins a tournament, he accumulates 19 points for that week. It's so simplistic. But the one caveat this week is there is a big advantage for the Scotties, the Victors, the Rory, and those 5 additional points. If one guy shoots 19 and they shoot 17 under par, they will still capture that ultimate victory and be the number 1 spot, achieving that $25 payout because they're going to get that tournament win. So it's just an interesting wrinkle. I think it adds a little bit of value to probably those top 4 guys in the market tonight, maybe even venture into Lucas Glover, adding some dollars and cents onto his end up IPO price. But I think for the most part, you are 100% correct. It's assessing this thing from a no starting strokes format, and everyone lies equal.
The other thing to consider is the payout curve is different again this week because we're down to 30 golfers. So you still get that $25 up top for first place, 20 for second. The $1 mark, that comes in at 20th this week. So everybody 19th and better in this 30-man field makes over $1. A couple of key checkpoints here. Joe, $5 per share is 12th. $8 is 8th, $10 is 6th, and then I'll give you, $16 is 3rd.
Yeah, please, I would recommend, if you're in the IPO market, to have this up on a second screen, have it up on the side, understand the payouts. Because what you have this week is the top 20% of the field are all going to reach over $10 payouts. That's unusual. In a 156-man field, it's not nearly 20% of the field, but also 33% of the field is going to get you the bare minimum payouts. So that curve and that jump for every additional spot and every additional dollar that you're willing to pay for someone in IPO is drastic from spot to spot this week. And having a good understanding and a baseline of what those payouts are for each and every position before you place your bids, I think is of the utmost importance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to jump right into this. You and I, we debated, should we play bullish or bearish? I'm like, well, that's like 12% of the field. We might as well just talk. We're going to basically talk about everybody. So let's just get right into this. Scotty Scheffler right now, $10.75 per share. So if we go back and look at those valuations right now, Scotty Scheffler has to finish fifth or better to return you a profit. Now, again, that is not necessarily a lock because he's 10 under. It might be a lock because he's Scotty Scheffler, but this is going to assume he is starting at even par.
Yes. Looking back at last year, he still actually took the first place spot in Jock Market for the week, even though he lost that Tour Championship to Rory because he was only finished just one or two strokes behind him. I think he's going to be going for a huge number tonight. Not only has he put together a world-class year tee to green, I mean, you put out the tweet earlier this week that just kind of jaw drops me as I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed and some of the numbers he's put together from a historical standpoint, how great it's really been. Then you factor in he's like plus 150 to actually hoist the FedEx Cup this week.
Yep.
So he's barely over even odds to win the tournament, which is going to get you those 5 additional points, coupled with the fact that he's having one of the greatest tee to green years we've ever seen on the PGA Tour. Yeah, he's going to go for a large sub this week, probably around $15 a share would kind of be my guess. And he's already cleared 10, I believe.
In the most recent update of, putter tracking, it appears like he's going back to the gamer that he won the Masters with, that
Yep.
Scotty Cameron Blade. Rory's going back to his Spider. So
Yep.
that 2-week or 3-week, experience is over. So guys going back to what they trust. Rory McIlroy right now, the second most expensive golfer in tonight's market. Now, I will note these pre-ranks. These pre-ranks are important, and they look like they are. No, they're not. I thought they might have aligned with the starting strokes, but they do not. But it's close, at least at the top. Scotty number 1, Victor 2, Rory 3, Rahm 4. Then it goes to Cantlay 5, which would have actually been Lucas Glover if we were following along for the pre-ranks, or excuse me, for the starting strokes. But those are important, Joe, because that's how we break ties here in the Jock Market. So if 5 or 6 guys tie for one position, the guy with the better pre-rank gets the big share. So Rory McIlroy third in the pre-ranks right now. There has been nobody who can put their stamp on Eastlake like Rory McIlroy has.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable. Even last year, I had him to win, and I believe he triple bogeyed the opening hole. He blew his opening tee shot, left OB, had to re-tee, made bogey off the re-tee ball. All of a sudden, he's 9 back of Scotty Scheffler because he started in that 4 under position last year. So don't be too alarmed. Like it makes a huge difference, but obviously Rory is a special level of talent, and particularly at Eastlake. I was actually just watching on Golf Channel before we came on here. They were showing the 2018 Tour Championship that Tiger won, and Rory started like 4 under through his first 6 holes. So he comes out of the gates fast often here. He's been playing extremely well. I am encouraged actually by him switching back to that Spider. I'm encouraged by Scotty too. I think it's the right move for both of them. I was listening to Scotty talk a little bit about it, and he said that he was too quick to make a change there. He had one bad performance at the Memorial, tried something new again, and now he's back with old trusty. Rory mentioned a similar thing, that he's had some of the best putting performances of his entire career with this putter. Let's go back to old trusty when the ball striking is working, when everything else is keying in. Go back to something you're comfortable with and you've seen roll plenty of putts in the hole over the years.
$9.10 per share right now for Victor Hovland. That's about sixth or better. Actually, seventh is $9 per share. He has been a winner in 3 straight cash markets, 13th at the Open, 13th in Memphis, and of course, the victory at the BMW Championship. Victor is getting hot at the right time right now, Joe, and he is certainly within arm's reach at the top of the board. He's going to start just 2 shots back.
He certainly is, and he's playing fantastic, and the confidence is all there for Victor, as it should be. A little bit of a mixed bag in the Tour Championship. You see there the last 3 years where he's had struggled a little bit with the putter. His best performance was a T5, and then 2 sort of middle of the pack performances. Albeit what we saw last week on the back 9, and you can probably elaborate on it a little bit, was one of the more special performances that I've seen to close a big time golf tournament since I've started watching.
Yeah, I mean, he said it was, the best round he's ever played. I think that you're starting to see these gains that he's been putting in all year long, and it's starting to show up on difficult golf courses. And the thing that I find interesting is, some of these guys don't always travel with their instructors. They kind of get tune-ups as they go along, or it's probably because their instructors deal with a lot of different players and they're not always tied to one. Joe Mayo has been in lockstep with Victor Hovland since Riviera, I think, is when I saw them out. He wasn't at Phoenix. I know that. He was at Riviera, and I'm not sure Joe's missed a week since. And these guys get it dialed in every single week. And that is something that not a lot of guys do, especially at this level. And it's special right now.
Yeah, it's great insight and something that we don't normally see, because it's a weird optically for golf in that we don't ever see the coach. In all other sports, the coach plays such an integral role, and we can name them and we recognize them, and they're part of the team. It's often sort of behind the scenes in golf, but to hear that he is traveling each and every week with them and on the road, you can certainly see the progress that is being made week over week, month over month, and he's having his best year to date. And the sky feels like the limit for this guy at this point.
If Rory is kind of the king of East Lake, then the prince is Xander Schauffele, who actually has better strokes gain numbers per round, but he hasn't played as much as Rory has. $8.25 per share right now. It is the 4th most expensive in the market. That's about an 8th place finish or better. So when you look at Xander, who has just kind of, I don't want to say he's scuffled since LACC when he was kind of in it, late on the weekend and ended up dropping to T10. It's been good. It just hasn't been great from Xander.
Yes, precisely. He has played a very statistically solid season. I think if you ask him, it's been rather disappointing, because there have been a number of Sundays late in the afternoon where he's trying to play catch up and he's not really firmly in contention. He's sort of trying to chase down a leader who's 10 groups behind him just teeing off. That's not what we're used to with Xander. That is something that, is a bit unfamiliar to the type of talent level that he plays at. I will say, like you mentioned, I believe it's 20 consecutive rounds now at East Lake where he shot under par or better. And this last year was not the case. I mentioned the rain that came in and the course kind of softened up a bit. This year, it's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. I expect it to play much more difficult, like we've seen in the past, where it's one of the top 10 most difficult spots on tour.
So those 4, Scotty, Rory, Victor, and Xander, jumping out to a fast start here in this market with about 30 minutes to go. If you want to get involved, the code you're looking for is POWER. There is a link in the description, but it's not just this. There obviously are other sports. We're bearing down on football season. That'll be back shortly. The props side of the game has been a ton of fun. Has anybody won the Jock Pot yet? Last I saw, the Jock Pot was up to 20 grand. It's got my
huge.
$5 every so often in there. So that's a nice little lotto ticket as well.
$27,324 in the jackpot right now.
$5
Somebody's going to get it.
What is it, 11 or 13 that you have to get? I think it's 11.
It is 11. It's 11 entries. I'm trying to just pull it up right now.
And you got to get them all.
Yeah, it's 11 players, but you can stagger sort of as you start to get to, I believe, 8. You will start to get paid out on it, like sort of on a spectrum.
Correct. So that's available to you. And obviously, if you don't follow Jock Market on Twitter, you're missing out on a very simple way to try to make $150 every single week. There's a tweet out there that if you quote tweet it with one of the 4 golfers that they list out, and you are correct, you're in a draw for $150. Very, very simple way. We've seen a lot of familiar names win that. Just all in all, Joe, especially as we get closer to, I mean, I'm in Vegas. It doesn't feel like fall, but I know it's going to be fall and football is going to be here and all that fun stuff shortly.
It don't feel like fall in South Florida either, buddy, but it's coming. You can hear as you drive home, you hear some of the pads cracking in the local high schools. Football season is absolutely on the brink. And of course, Jock Market has contests on Monday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night football. When there's Thursday night games, they will have those as well. Specific markets just for Sunday night football. So all kinds of avenue to sort of get your fix. And one of the more fun and like hostile in terms of like can go from winning a lot to losing a lot and vice versa, losing a lot to winning a lot on one single pass. You get like a third string tight end in there who gets a late touchdown and you got him for cheap. You can make a lot of money in there. So it'll certainly be fun. And I expect their usage will be way up this year.
So after those big 4 that we already talked about, you get basically $1.50 gap to everyone else. Max Homa 675, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize what Max Homa has been up to with 4 straight wins in the Jock Market, Joe. They are 12th, 10th, 6th, 5th. There's only so many spots left if he is going to continue to make this improvement, and he is, I think, one of the more popular options for this week in that non-starting strokes, the without starting strokes market. He's going to start at 4 under, not necessarily as important here, except for that 5 points at the top.
Yeah, and he's really reined it in with the driver. If you look super recently, like his last 12 rounds, he is the second best player in the field, obviously just behind Scotty Scheffler off the tee. So he has certainly got the driver under control. He's got it on a string. He was, even last week, he was just consistently hitting fairways. I know that he didn't have the weekend that he necessarily wanted, but it's interesting to see how much weight that carries with the players like his game. And you know, starting in that number 4 spot also is Jon Rahm, who we haven't spoken to about yet. And Jon Rahm is kind of working on the opposite. He's gaining 0.09 strokes off the tee in his last 3 events. That is abysmal numbers by Jon Rahm standards, where he normally dominates. I know that that's a couple of leaky shots that ended up in the water, particularly on that 18th hole there, but it just hasn't been nearly as solid. And I have some concerns, even though it's a player who's come into this event with a good bit of history, finishing 2nd and 4th in 2 of the last 5 years. Where are you at with Rahm right now?
Yeah, I think he's the most interesting guy here on the slate, right? Because if Jon Rahm, starting 4 shots back, won the FedEx Cup, we'd be like, yeah, of course you did. No surprise. He won 4 times this year. He's kind of, he's picked these off all the way, but yeah, it just hasn't felt as good from Jon Rahm, and the metrics start to follow that. I mean, I thought you were very kind saying it was a couple of leaky shots. I think it's worse, right? Every time I see him, he's yanking one way left, and he's not getting bailed out. So I will probably not be as invested in Jon Rahm as I would like to be, but it's certainly a scary fade.
Yeah, they've had to have Jon Rahm on a bit of a tape delay off the tee because he has had some choice words and some club slams in recent weeks. But, the other interesting part is it all comes down to this 1 week, I think. And a lot of things one of the important things that I think the players carry a lot about, that isn't tied to money or a particular event, but the player of the year, right? About a month ago, I would have said that Jon Rahm was going to win player of the year. He won a major. He won the events. You mentioned the 4 wins early in the season. He had his elevated events. He had a major championship. He'd been consistent across a number of major championships. It feels like over the last month, it's starting to shift a little bit in Scotty Scheffler's direction. I think that he has an argument, particularly if he wins the FedEx Cup by a couple of strokes this week. So I think that Jon Rahm cares a lot about that, is hoping for a good performance this week to kind of put a bow on what was really a spectacular start to the season. And you just don't want to end in sort of a disappointing way after like such a dominant performance basically through April.
The other guy that I find super interesting is Patrick Cantlay, who's currently at $6 per share. That is a 10th place finish or better. And Joe, he has obviously he's won the FedEx Cup. He did it in
Yeah.
2021, but the rest of his results around East Lake leave a lot to be desired. He's never gained strokes putting here, which
Hmm.
is a little bit concerning. Where do you stand on Cantlay's chances for this week?
I'm probably not as high on him this week. It's been one of those weird years for me with Cantlay where I feel like he is a bit unpredictable in a sense. I did not see the performance at TP Southwind coming. There was another one earlier in the year that kind of came out of nowhere. So I have some concerns there. Not only is he not gaining strokes putting, at this event, if you look at his last 3 tournaments played, he's also losing strokes putting there. He's doing it a lot around the green. He's been the best player around the green over the last 3 or 4 tournaments. I don't know if that's a spot that you really want to carry over a lot of success, particularly at Eastlake. It's going to be a ball striker's course. You're going to have your approaches dialed in, and you're going to have to hold some putts, especially coming back and trying to make a run from 4 under to catch Scotty at 10.
All right, let me open up the conversation here to the next group. Sung JM at $5.75. He's won you money in 3 straight jock markets, 4 of his last 5. Russell Henley has just been a print machine, 3 straight sizable wins and 7 of his last 9. And then Jordan Spieth also similarly priced, as you can imagine, all over the map. Might win you a bunch, might lose you a bunch. Good luck trying to figure out which direction it goes. Is there someone in that group that you're most interested about or excited about?
I think Henley's carrying the best form. It's probably undeniable. We think about the collapse at the Wyndham, but if you zoom out a little bit and just look at the recent finishes, he's been fantastic. 3 straight top 8s. He's doing it with the approach. He's doing it off the tee. He's consistently going to hit fairways. He's familiar, certainly, with Georgia golf, growing up and playing in college there. So I have a lot of interest in Henley this week. I've just been reluctant to get there because I don't feel like his skill set aligns with what we see out of these other top players, but he just battles, man. And I think that he's playing better at the moment than those other 2 guys you mentioned in Sung JM and Jordan Spieth. Who would you go with out of those 3?
Henley.
Mm-hmm.
I do really. I think we are overdue for a Sung Jae win. I was kind of going through this stuff because I got deep into the tee to green weeds with the Scotty stuff, and when you start overlaying just constantly being great tee to green, these guys run into wins. And Sung Jae and Colin Morikawa are probably overdue for wins because they just haven't run into them yet. But so that one's exciting too. But this is an undeniably awesome season for Russell Henley. And yes, I realize that he's only played the Tour Championship twice, and it's 2017 and 2014, but he's gained 11 and a half strokes in those 8 rounds. I think he's uber confident. I do like your point, though. He is going to have to play kind of a different game. He's going to have to play out of the fairway. He's going to have to make enough putts, which is honestly what he's been doing all year long.
Yeah, and it's one of those spots we're back with Bermuda rough. We're back with Bermuda greens. Like the rough doesn't necessarily have to be 4 inches high to be really penal with Bermuda. It's kind of strange, especially here in the Southeast. So I do think that playing out of the fairway gives you a huge advantage, particularly at a tough, long par 70 golf course like this with a lot of difficult par 4s on tap. The more that you can play out of the fairway consistently like Russell Henley does, the better you are.
We've got about 20 minutes to go in this IPO. Still plenty of time to get involved here and in the prop side of things and getting ready for football. And there's Major League Baseball happening right now. The code you're looking for there is POWER. Link in the description if you want to get involved. Scotty Scheffler is creeping up towards $11 per share. Scotty, Rory, and Victor continue to hold down the top spot. We're seeing a little bit of movement of Jon Rahm up the board. Let's continue our conversation towards the middle here. The guys in the $3 range. Brian Harman, 350, has been phenomenal. That is 3 triple-digit returns in his last 6, with 2 more at 92 and 93%. Lucas Glover at 325, who has gotten a horrible pre-rank, 26th out of 30. Disrespectful for the glove, who has been a triple-digit earner upwards of 400% in 4 of his last 6. Tom Kim is here at 301, and Sepp Straka, who seems to be one of the more popular flavors of the week, Joe, round out the guys in that $3 range. What do you see here?
You know what? I'm most interested, and I want to see where the price gets on Lucas Glover, actually. He's been the best player with his irons over the last month. He's gaining more strokes on approach than Scotty, than Rory, than Victor, than anyone. Obviously, the 2 wins in there. It feels like the narrative around him when you watch the coverage is, oh my God, he's been so hot with the putter. But it's really just playing slightly above average with the putter, and that's just out of the norm for what we were used to. It's a big improvement for him. It's not like he's going crazy. Brian Harmon is going crazy with the putter. He's getting a stroke more per round than Lucas Glover. I feel better about the iron play and riding with that with Lucas, but you have two sort of competing angles here with him that will be interesting to see how that affects his price. One is the pre-rank, right? Because the pre-rank's awful. But two, he starts at -5, right? So he starts in that number 5 spot. So he doesn't have nearly as far to climb as some of those other guys around him. So he's only 5 strokes off the lead. He only trails to 4 players. If Scotty slips out of the gate, he finds himself 1 or 2 back. And who knows? I mean, there's very few players in this field playing with as much current confidence right now in their swing as Lucas Glover.
Maybe I have a blind spot. Maybe I am too into the weeds on the data, but this profile is as good as it gets. I mean, he is the second best player in the world in the last 24 rounds. He is from tee to green gaining 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 twice in the last 8. And yeah, the putter, like, I mean, he finished 5th at the Barbasol losing strokes putting, right? Like, you don't necessarily need him to gain 5 strokes. If he does, great. It's going to be an awesome week. But he can keep himself in it. What he's just not doing anymore is he's not putting himself out of it, right? Which is what he did for a very, very long time. And he could not out hit the putter in a sustainable way. So I agree. I'm big in on Glover. The other guy that I think is interesting is Tom Kim. I think what we're getting, maybe a little too late, but what we're getting from Tom Kim is what we thought we were going to get in January.
What you
Right?
thought you were going to get too, right?
What? Yeah, literally what I thought I was going to get when I drafted him in the second round for the Vegas Straight Flushers. Colin Morikawa, Tom Kim 1-2 did not end well for my season. I got like zero production out of those guys. But this is what you wanted, right? Just be average to slightly above average off the tee, be a pretty decent iron player, and then we've seen him putt the lights out. And he, 6 months of the season, we lost all that, but this is what we wanted to see.
Yeah, he rides with the confidence with the putter, and when it's going, it's usually going really well. Obviously, when he got that win, he like broke the record for strokes gained putting, I believe, that week. So that's where the confidence ride. But I'm encouraged to see the ball striking numbers there, positive in 7 of the last 8 starts. So he's starting to run into form with the iron play. I think that just judging from some of the interviews and some of the on-course content that I've seen come out of this week and watching Golf Channel, I do feel the sense that there may be some players who are on an empty tank this week, and some guys down the list who are sort of running on fumes. Tom Kim ain't the guy. Like, he's ready.
I was gonna say he's like 19 years old. If he has an empty tank, we got big problems.
No. I wasn't referring to Tom. Tom is on the opposite end, where I feel like he's fueled up. He's coming back into form. He's energized. He's still completely ready to go. And I actually do favor his chances this week.
All right. Well, you had me a little nervous there for a second. All right. This thing is, we're seeing the top of the board hanging. Scotty and Rory above $10, but we're seeing that upward movement on Cantlay and Jon Rahm, while Xander Schauffele starting to close the gap a little bit. Let's continue this conversation. A new crop of names have jumped into that $3 tier. Sepp Straka, Tony Finau, Colin Morikawa. I'll even throw Tommy Fleetwood in that conversation as well. We've been kind of documenting this for a while, Joe. I'm pretty concerned about what's coming out of Tony Finau and that game right now. But is there any clicks that you can be confident about in this kind of area?
Yeah, I think that for me, I'm probably most confident in Colin, but I can see very good reason to be very confident in Tommy Fleetwood as well. He's just been very consistently good, albeit not crossing that finish line and lifting up a trophy. He's been a consistent earner, and we documented a little bit last week or maybe the week prior, but over the last, 10 to 15 starts, he's been one of the better ROI guys in the entire field. So he's
Yeah.
been solid there. I don't know if I'm feeling Straka. Straka has these blips where he'll go on these 2 to 3 week runs, and it feels like that's starting to expire a little bit in that range for me. And all things have sort of been headed in the wrong direction for quite a while with Tony Finau, and I'm not seeing anything statistically to leave me too encouraged.
Last 10 markets, Tommy Fleetwood has a better ROI than Victor Hovland. Think about that, just
Hmm.
because of kind of expectation and what those payouts end up being. It would be very on brand for Tommy to win the shadow leaderboard, by the way.
Oh God, yeah, it would. Totally.
All right,
Poor
now we
guy.
start to get into a lot more question marks, and these are guys that we've not seen a lot of early investment in. We've got 15 minutes left in this market, which is still a lot of time, but Matt Fitzpatrick has a good week last week, his first in a while. We'll see how people react. Ricky Fowler, $1.77 per share right now. He's in the midst of the worst 4 tournament stretch of his season. Then you get guys who kind of flashed a little bit. What about Sam Burns? Went out and went scorched earth for at least one round last week at the BMW Championship. What do you see when you start breaking down the bottom of this board?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys here that are very attractive prices. I mean, granted they have to finish in the top 60% of the field to get paid out, but you look at someone like Sam Burns, who has shown a lot of upside the last couple of weeks with really low rounds. He just every now and then he'll lose it with a double bogey. But the other guy for me is still at $1, and it's Wyndham Clark. I had some last week. He's had a phenomenal career year. We maybe have forgotten about him a little bit. He had a terrible week at Memphis, but he bounced back nicely last week with a top 15 at Olympia Fields. He was flirting around the top of the leaderboard heading into the weekend as well. That's the guy that I think I like if he's still continuing to be priced low. Where are you at with Matt Fitzpatrick? Was last week
Oh,
more of an anomaly that sort of came out of nowhere, or was it something statistically you would see trending?
I lean very slightly bearish on Matt Fitzpatrick.
Hmm.
7.5 strokes gained putting is one of his best putting performances ever. I'm happy to see that he drove the ball better, but he still didn't drive it great. I think there are positive takeaways, but not enough to get me really excited. I think I need to see one more now. I'll see that, and then I guess I'll see him. I don't know, or the Ryder Cup, I guess is the next time we'll
Yeah.
see him. But so I probably won't have Matt Fitzpatrick until he makes his debut next year. But I worry about this a little bit.
Yeah, it looks problematic there. How are his tour championship numbers?
He's only played here once. It was last year. T15
Middle
lost
of the
less than
field.
a half a stroke, right in the middle of the pack. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to see who else is down here. So in DFS markets, there's a couple of guys that are getting a lot of runs. Sepp Straka, who's already up to $3 a share, and then Adam Schenk, who's down here at $1 per share still. And I want to look up his results here, Joe, because they're kind of feast or famine, right? You get some missed cuts, which he doesn't have to worry about this week. You get some bad finishes, but we are talking about 5 top sevens in his last 10 starts, which is not something that probably anybody else at the bottom of this market can say.
Yeah, a positive looking graph there as well. Sort of some ups and downs and peaks and valleys. Good on him. Just this is obviously a career moment to just make the tour championship for someone like Adam Shanks. So I think that a lot of players like him, potentially Taylor Moore, Nick Taylor, Griot, these guys will be highly enthused to play this week and excited to see what they're able to do with certainly the biggest purse that they've ever played for on the line.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, let me refresh this board and see what I can find. If you're looking to get involved, the code is still indeed power. There is a link in the description that'll get you your $100 deposit bonus. The props are live. The jock pot's up to about $1 million at this point, and you can get involved there. We have seen not much movement at the top. 1075 for Scotty, $10 for Rory. Are we tapped out, or are people biding their time, waiting to get involved?
I think we're going to see the move on Scotty. I maybe I was wrong in saying that he gets to $14-15, but I still think that that could potentially be in the cards. He's like a 50-50 proposition, in my opinion, to win. If you give Scotty a 5-stroke lead in every event this year on 60-70% of the field, he's going to win a lot of golf tournaments. And I think that that'll be enough for him this week, assuming that someone doesn't absolutely charge like Rory or Victor or someone like Rahm even have a good week, sort of coming off of a few bad ones. I think he's the favorite. I think that ends up with a big jump. And Rory, with his form around East Lake and what he was able to do last year, coming from that spot at -4 under, and I mentioned the triple bogey, so coming from 9 back was one of the more impressive things that we've witnessed in a while.
The questions, I guess, are real on Jon Rahm. $7.85. There's a hesitancy on Rahm at this point. If he does not finish somewhere as one of the 4 most expensive golfers, I think that would be pretty surprising. But he's outside that right now. Xander Schauffele is 40 cents more expensive. He's kind of in a tier of his own, but a lot of hesitancy here on Rahmbo.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So, like, if you look back at his recent IPO prices, the majority of them are over $10. If they're not $10, they're right around like 950.
Yeah.
So he usually gets to that mark. The interesting thing is he's going to have to beat an informed Scotty, Rory, and Hovland to end up winning that 5 additional points. If he doesn't do that, everyone else in the field comes into play because of the no starting strokes. And you wonder if that sort of affects a little bit of mentality on the guys who are coming from that 0 position, who are just going out there and firing at every pin and basically playing with nothing to lose, with being a no-cut event, knowing what the payouts exist at. So there are some legitimate concerns there, although I think this is one of those weeks where we get a rally performance out of Rahm.
Okay, well, here's maybe the most interesting thing that's happening right now in the market. The 7th pre-ranked golfer is the cheapest guy in the field, $1.95 for Terrell Hatton, who has been a loser in 3 straight jock markets, 4 out of his last 5. I think he's been very popular this summer in most fantasy formats. And Joe, he is going to start in one of those positions where it's like, well, screw it, man. Let me see how low I can go.
He is going to start, as we saw on social media last week. He didn't look too thrilled about even coming here this week, but I'm sure that he absolutely is. But yeah, he's lost in 4 of the last 5 markets, with the exception of the Scottish Open. He's having like one of those Fleetwood type years where the numbers ball striking wise and statistically in top 10s and top 15s have been one of his better years on tour. He just hasn't got those wins that he was able to accumulate a few years ago. Interesting spot for him, starting at 0, and a guy that does end up having those really low rounds. He just has to avoid those 1 or 2 days where he goes stagnant and plays even or 1 over par, because he has those 6-7 under par rounds in him.
Yeah, and we're seeing a little bit of movement now. Jon Rahm up to 827. There was that big run, just as we spoke about him, on Terrell Hatton, up to $5.84.
Wow.
And Ricky right behind at 544. Joe, I'm going to get you out of here in just a second so you can get your bids in. But there's only 30 golfers. Obviously, the payout structure is different. How is your portfolio building strategy going to look this week compared to most weeks?
Yeah, probably not getting half. So usually 8 to 10 guys. I'll probably be at 4 to 5 tonight. I'm probably, judging by the way things are sitting right now, going to attack a little bit of that top of the board and just hope that I stick my shares in the right spot where I'm able to get that $25 payout. But that's more than likely where I'm going to end up going. But it's all sort of price dependent, as things, of course, always happen fast in that last 90 seconds there.
All right, Joe, get out of here. Go do your thing. Get your bids in. We'll connect with you here in just a couple of minutes. We've got about 6 or so minutes until this IPO closes. So if you are making bids, those will be distributed as shares if you're one of the high bidders in just a couple of minutes. And then the live market will be available to you, and you can continue your stock market habits in the jock market. So here we go. I feel like I've said this for quite some time. Scotty Scheffler, $10.75. Rory McIlroy, $10. They're the 2 most expensive guys in this market, and they have not moved in what feels like about 15 or 20 minutes. So we'll see if they get a late run here in the final few final few moments of this market. Victor Hovland settling into that third position, but he does have that second pre-rank, which is very valuable. Only Scotty Scheffler is going to break ties with Victor Hovland. He's at 910 right now. It's about a 7th place finish or better for Victor, who has turned you a profit in 3 straight Jock markets. Here is Xander Schauffele leading the way over Jon Rahm in that $8 tier, $8.65 per share in kind of a weird summer for Xander, going to a place that he's absolutely thrived at. We'll see if he can get it done. Lots of people in the market tonight are buying on Xander Schauffele. Rahm at 827, who we've already talked about. There's Patrick Cantlay all by himself. Won here 2 years ago, has had kind of a weird year, 3 losses in his last 4, but a big win in Memphis at the as a runner-up finish, 165% ROI. He's at $7.11 per share. That's about 9th or better. Then you get kind of a choose your own adventure. Do you want Max Homa at 685? He's been playing great golf. He's improved his finishing position in 4 straight, starting 5 events ago with a T21. Colin Morikawa, 658 per share. That again, 6th is 10th place. $6 is 10th place. $7, 9th place here in this market. And then Sung J M, who kind of gets a little bit of a crappy pre-rank here, has earned you a profit in 4 of the last 5, but he's 14th in the pre-rank. Let me refresh the big board. I've got about 8:56 p.m. Eastern time. So we've got about 3, maybe 4 minutes to go here before this thing closes. And I'll say it again, no movement at the top, at least not on the big 3. Scotty, Rory, Victor, don't move. We are seeing a little bit of movement here in the middle of the board. There's Russell Henley, now up to $5.35. He's been a big winner in 3 straight. He has been a winner in 7 of 9. Russell Henley at $5.35 needs to finish about 11th or better. Remember, that is without the use of the starting strokes. Haven't said this name yet. Corey Connors, $5.15. He is coming on strong at the end of the year. 4 wins in his last 5 Jock market appearances. He's currently at 515. Again, you're looking at that kind of 12th place finishing position or better. Lucas Glover, second best player in the world in the last 24 rounds. A guy who has won twice in his last 3 starts is $4.44. I wonder if that is everybody's sick of him. I wonder if it is the fact that he is the 26th pre-ranked golfer out of 30. Absolutely horrid for that, but he is basically in the bottom third of the pricing right now. Let me get a refresh on this board. 8:57, bearing down on 8:58 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see how long this market stays open for, but not much longer. Here we go. Now the board is moving at the top. Scotty Scheffler jumps to $12 per share. He needs a 5th place finish or better. Rory McIlroy, $11.75. Same thing, 5th or better. Victor, $9.39. Big gap between Scotty, Rory, and everybody else. Jon Rahm still hovering behind Xander Schauffele, but there's a big jump on Patrick Cantlay up to $8.25. We'll see if he can get up past Jon Rahm or if somebody's going to come in and save the Rahm supporters. There's nobody in the $7 tier with Homa, Morikawa, Sungjae, and there's Tommy Fleetwood up to $6.01 in that $6 range. Real quick check on the bottom of the board. The penny stocks, Emiliano Grillo, Jason Day, Sepp Straka, Siwoo Kim, all towards the bottom. And we rounded out with Adam Schenk, Nick Taylor, and Taylor Moore. Mentioned it about Adam Schenk. 500% ROIs or better in his last 10. That is sitting down there at $2.94 per share, which is 16th or better. I'm going to keep refreshing here. 8:58 p.m. Eastern time. The code you're looking for is power. There's a link in the description. We are getting a run on the names at the top. Nobody wants to go home without Scotty Scheffler in hand. $12.69. That is now going to ask him to finish 4th or better. 5th is $12 per share. 4th is $14 per share. Rory might be tapped out at $11.75. We're going to find out. We are probably seconds away because we are in that final minute. Jon Rahm has dropped all the way down to the 6th most expensive golfer on this slate. He's the 4th in the pre-ranks. He's 869. He's been leapfrogged by Cantlay, Xander, and he is lurking down there at 869. Big gap between those guys and the rest of the field. I'm going to try one more refresh, but I don't know if I'm going to get it because this market is moments away from closing.
Yeah, we closed.
I was going to say, I think it is closed now.
We just closed. Yep.
Okay. Shut it down. IPO is closed.
Shut it down.
Wow. All right. Well, I cannot wait to see what these final numbers are, but Scotty was ripping at the end.
Yes.
And everybody was passing on Rahm. I don't know how it finished, but that's what was happening as we were still live.
Yep. Interesting. I think I got both of those players.
Okay. Well, do you have your portfolio available?
Yeah. So I was part of the Scotty rip at the end. $13 per share was actually had bids in for 14. So I'm okay there at 13. Rahm at 869. It's cheap. Seeing that he usually goes at 950, 30-man field, starting at -6. I like my chances there with Rahm. Victor was the other one that I got. $9.50. Starting in that 2 spot, you get a $3.50 drop off from Scotty Scheffler. So probably the hottest player coming into this event, or at least one of the hottest players, starting in the number 2 spot. So I have 1 and 2 sort of out of the gates that I feel pretty good about. And then 2 guys in the $4 range that I picked up that I like. We mentioned both of them quite often. One is Tom Kim right at $4.99, and the other is Lucas Glover at $4.50. So I've got
great.
Scheffler, Hovland, Rahm, and Glover. Out of the guys starting in the top 5, I have all of them except for Rory McIlroy. So that's who I got.
Yeah, this is I love this, right? You know, Scotty, right? You can't go wrong with Scotty, Rahm, Hovland. And then you got the 2 guys that I thought were like pretty significantly underpriced and being missed out on. So that's awesome. Here's the final pricing here. $13 for Scotty. He's got to finish about 14th or better. Rory at 1176. Massive. I mean, 869 has got to be the cheapest we've seen on Jon Rahm. I mean, since this event last year, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. So you got like a 52-week low.
I got a 52-week low on Rahm coming into an event with it all in front of him to play for in terms of player of the year. I like my chances. I hope he plays well.
Couple of notables. We did get a late run on Terrell Hatton. He's up to $6.10 per share, but I still think that is pretty. I mean, just like 2 weeks ago, he was the belle of the ball, and everybody wanted every piece of Terrell Hatton they could get.
Absolutely. Yeah. The biggest surprise to me is Lucas Glover.
It's unfathomable.
Okay, so we're gonna bid up Russell Henley and Brian Harmon, who have been incredibly hot. Lucas Glover's playing better than them, or equally as good as both of them, and he's significantly cheaper. You know, he's $1.50, $2 cheaper. So I feel like he's the best bargain, especially given the fact that he's starting in a spot where he's the best iron player in the field over the last month, like you mentioned, and he's starting ahead of 75% of the players in the tournament being the best iron player in the field. So I really like his chances. I feel good about that buy.
I do too. I hope I'm not like, if there's something I'm missing, someone let me know. But the Lucas Glover stuff has been a little bit weird this week. I think everybody was just waiting for any moment to get off of him, and like a T22 in a 50-person field was enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, Joe. Well, listen, we are just getting started here because the live market is now up. So you can continue. And obviously when they get started tomorrow, which should be a little bit later than normal because there's only 30 guys they have to get through East Lake. I think the first tee time is 10 o'clock Eastern, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it's a little bit later than normal because they don't have to get everybody through. And you can continue to track this and follow along. It's a great time. And I don't know if we have anything planned for next week, if we'll do a special episode or if we'll just hang until the Fortnite. But it has been a pleasure, Joe, to knock out another season with you. And I'm happy that there is a very, very short off season until we get right back at it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an honor. Thank you guys all for your support. Make sure to sub to Rick's channel, like the episode, drop a comment. Make sure to let the Jock Market guys know that you still are enjoying the show here. And like you mentioned, like it's only just begun, and this is a very interesting week for that, giving this sort of jumps in terms of the valuations per position. So if your guy double bogeys a hole and jumps from 6th place to 12th place, his valuation is essentially cut in half. So these will move very quickly. You can go from $5 to $12 per share based on one birdie and another guy bogeying here or there. So pay close attention. There are live bidding on every player. You have the ability to sell any player at any time. And this will definitely be an interesting week in terms of live trading, to stay tuned.
You can follow Joe on Twitter at TourPicks. You can find me at RickRunGood. This has been your Jock Market Power Hour for the Tour Championship. Good luck.